Fund, Chair of Board, Professor Fiona Murray. Welcome, ma'am. Here.
All right. Can you hear me? Wonderful. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Deputy Minister, the CEO Bayraktar, ladies and gentlemen. Teşekkürler. Thank you for having us in Turkey, in Turkey. We really appreciate it. I want to give my thanks to Minister Fatih Koçer for the Turkish government's hospitality here to the NATO Innovation Fund team, and especially thank the Deputy Minister for joining us. I also want to thank my friends, Deputy Director General Ahmet and Hande, for all their hospitality, and the whole team. Thank you so much. You've always made us feel so welcome. You have absolutely supported the NATO Innovation Fund the whole time that we have been here and throughout our journey. Some of you may wonder why NATO has an innovation fund. We think of NATO as a very large multilateral body that's really focused on defense and security. And that is the reason that we now today have an innovation fund. It was established in 2023 to build defense, security and resilience capabilities across Europe, to invest in and scale up startups that will define the technological edge for the alliance today and for decades to come. Now, the NATO Innovation Fund, or NIF, as we like to call it, is actually the world's first multi-sovereign fund. And we have about a billion euro from NATO nations, including Turkey, to deploy as equity investments to the most ambitious founders as they turn breakthrough technologies into deployed capabilities. We work side by side with NATO Diana, the Defense Innovation Accelerator of the North Atlantic. And both our organizations, you will see here, we have a presence. We both have booths, and you're most welcome, please, to come and visit us. And at those booths, you'll find the entrepreneurs that we support, not only with capital, but also creating opportunities for them to put their technologies into the hands of governments, of militaries, and also of civilians across the alliance and in our partners beyond. But we know that this edge, this technological edge, won't be determined by invention alone, but how effectively we translate innovation into deployed capability at scale. And this requires industrialization. We need to actually build the production lines, the manufacturing, and the supply chains. And here, as in many things, we have a lot to learn from Turkey. Turkey has a very, very important role to play. And if we can connect across all of our European allies and partners, we can connect up some of the most extraordinary innovation ecosystems and young talent with manufacturing and production, allowing every individual nation and individual organization to really leverage its own particular comparative advantage. Now, I will say this is the third visit of the NATO Innovation Fund to Turkey. This time we came with even more people. We brought our whole limited partner network, 24 nations represented, as well as our full investment team, our operations team, and our adoption team. And I'm sure that we are, over the coming months and years, going to continue to find investment opportunities and opportunities for partnership and joint development. I want to say that amongst, I believe that Turkey has over 3,000 defense and aerospace firms. We see very deep supply chains. I can already see that here in the expo and large production. Turkey is an industrial leader among NATO nations, and you've built clearly some of the most extraordinary and competitive manufacturing base. But clearly we have more going on here. I think perhaps people think Turkey is a place where things are made, but there are also places where it's also a country where things are invented and innovated. That innovation, when it's coupled with industrialization, is an incredible source of power and opportunity. And I know that there are hundreds of deep tech companies in Turkey, active venture capital funds, and so much opportunity for young people to be inspired. I had the privilege with the team and all our LPs today to visit Baykar, to visit the National sort of R&D Center, where I know production and other things happen. And it was tremendous to see. I understand it's an organization of 8,000 people, but the average age is 29. That's an incredibly young workforce of really dynamic individuals. And it's a spirit of innovation that reminds me of what I see every day back at MIT, at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where I work as a professor. And there I meet Turkish engineers and innovators with great entrepreneurial spirit. And I know, in fact, one of the, Mr. Seljuk Bayraktar himself is an MIT alum. And so we're very proud of what he has brought back to Turkey many years ago and continues to build. And so we feel these strong links with like-minded innovators and entrepreneurs. Now, we know at NIF that capital is not enough to ensure the rapid adoption and industrialization at scale. And so indeed our mandate is not simply to invest and walk away. It's to invest and then strengthen the pace and scale of the solutions that our entrepreneurial teams are developing and to ensure that they are adopted across NATO nations. Now, to do that, governments have a lot of work to do to make sure that we buy and acquire and adopt across our countries, that we lean into the opportunities and advantages that each of our different nations bring, and then to work hand in hand with one another to build such a powerful industrial base. That can be the basis both of shared prosperity, but also shared defense and security. And so with that, I think all I'd like to say is that Turkey demonstrates what's possible in both innovation and industrial scale. And really what a pleasure and a privilege for us to be here. So once again, I want to thank all of you and thank everybody from the NATO Innovation Fund team for taking the time for all of us to be together, particularly the partners and Ari Jonsson, our president, and all the board members. And lastly, just one more thanks to our hosts. You have been so warmly hospitable, so hospitable indeed that we will be back very, very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Now I kindly invite Minister of Industry and Technology, Republic of Turkey, our Deputy Minister, Mr. Muhammed Kasım Gönüllü.
Esteemed Chair of the NATO Innovation Fund Board, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to join you today at SAHA 2026. Since its inception, this flagship platform has played a vital role in elevating the competitiveness, visibility and international standing of the Turkish defense industry. I would like to begin by extending my sincere appreciation and congratulations to everyone who has contributed to SAHA's success. By fostering a strong culture of collaboration among all stakeholders in our defense ecosystem, SAHA has firmly established itself as one of the most effective instruments of Turkey's defense diplomacy. Distinguished guests, the global system is undergoing a profound transformation. A wave of regional conflicts, escalating geopolitical tensions and mounting uncertainty are fundamentally reshaping the international security environment. The intensification of crises across a broad geographic clearly demonstrates that diplomacy alone is no longer sufficient to guarantee security. Today, nations must navigate an ever-changing landscape where conventional and unconventional threats intersect, demanding rapid adaptation and acute strategic foresight. Within this evolving landscape, the very nature of warfare is transforming. The modern battlefield is increasingly dictated by advanced technologies. Unmanned systems, AI-driven decision-making, cybersecurity, electronic warfare, and space technologies are no longer merely complementary assets, they are the decisive factors in achieving operational superiority. Today, true strength is not measured solely by the size of one's armed force, but by the capacity to design, develop, manufacture, and effectively deploy advanced indigenous technologies. The future of security rests on agility, innovation, and the seamless integration of cutting-edge tech. Consequently, cultivating domestic production capabilities and a robust R&D ecosystem are no longer just matters of industrial policy, they are absolute strategic imperatives. This profound realization is the driving force behind our national technology initiative. Guided by the visionary framework under the strong leadership of our President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkey's defense industry has emerged as a truly remarkable success story. We have transitioned from a procurement-reliant structure to a dynamic, innovation-driven ecosystem. Over the past 2 decades, we have forged formidable indigenous capabilities across the land, air, sea, space, cyber, and electronic warfare domains. This profound transformation was made possible through sustained R&D investments, seamless public-private coordination, and the tireless dedication of our engineers, researchers, entrepreneurs, and SMEs. Today, our technoparks, R&D centers, universities, and industrial clusters form a powerful innovation network. This synergy allows Turkey to accelerate with confidence from idea to prototype, from prototype to mass production, and ultimately to global markets. The most visible testament to this transformation is our global leadership in unmanned aerial systems. Platforms like the Bayraktar TB2, TB3, Akıncı, Kızıl Elma, Anka, and Aksungur have become internationally recognized benchmarks, distinguished not only by their technological sophistication, but by their combat-proven performance. Yet our achievements extend far beyond UAVs. We have made monumental strides across a broad spectrum of critical technologies. From our 5th-generation combat aircraft, Kaan, and light attack aircraft, Hürjet, to our Gökbey and Atak helicopters, from our naval platforms, Milgem, TCG Anadolu, to main battle tank Altay, and from our precision-guided missiles, Gökdoğan and Bozdoğan, to our multi-layered steel dome air defense architectures like Hisar, Siper, and Korkut. These assets reflect Turkey's technological maturity and engineering excellence. Today, Turkey's indigenous defense products are pivotal tools capable of shifting the dynamics of warfare and reshaping the global geopolitical landscape. These milestones are the direct result of a robust, integrated, and rapidly expanding ecosystem. This ecosystem has propelled Turkey into its current role as a trusted and highly competitive defense exporter. A growing number of nations prefer Turkish defense products not merely for their cost effectiveness, but for their unique blend of technological sophistication, operational reliability, and rapid adaptability to battlefield realities. As our companies expand their national footprint, Turkey is no longer just a participant in global defense markets, we are actively shaping them. However, our journey is far from over. We aim to fortify this ecosystem by providing companies of all sizes with the right tools, infrastructure, and opportunities. By deepening the synergy between procurement authorities, prime contractors, SMEs, startups, and research institutions, we remain fiercely committed to pursuing even more sophisticated technologies, higher valued added production, and stronger foothold in the global defense arena. Esteemed guests, crucially, Turkey's technological advancements directly bolster the collective strength and resilience of NATO. Since joining in 1952, Turkey has stood as one of the alliance's most active, capable, and reliable members. For over 7 decades, we have supported NATO's missions, operations, and collective defense initiatives with an unwavering sense of responsibility and solidarity. Armed with a vital strategic geography, immense industrial capacity, and proven operational experience, Turkey adds indispensable value to the alliance's deterrence and defense posture. While we have significantly advanced collective security, we have also benefited from NATO's interoperability, shared standards, and deeply rooted culture of cooperation. Yet, we do not view our role within NATO solely through the lens of traditional security. We see the alliance as a vital platform for technological cooperation, industrial partnership, and innovation-driven capability development. As NATO increasingly prioritizes emerging and disruptive technologies, supply chain security, and defense industrial capacity, Turkey is perfectly positioned to elevate its contributions even further. In today's climate, maintaining the alliance's technological edge means moving beyond traditional capability development models. Allies must identify emerging needs faster, mobilize innovative companies more effectively, and swiftly convert dual-use technologies into operational assets. Technology entrepreneurship presents a massive opportunity here. A new generation of agile, risk-tolerant innovators is proactively developing advanced solutions for emerging security challenges rather than waiting for conventional requirement-based contracts. When properly scaled and integrated, these technologies offer allies greater flexibility in meeting capability targets while expanding the defense industrial base and accelerating innovation cycles. Therefore, NATO's expanding innovation agenda is of profound strategic importance. Two vital instruments driving this agenda are the NIF, NATO Innovation Fund, and the DIANA, the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic. NIF is deploying over 1 billion euros into deep tech startups focused on defense, security, and resilience. Beyond capital, it provides the strategic support needed to scale ventures and conquer international markets. Similarly, DIANA connects a sweeping innovation ecosystem, transforming bright ideas into scalable global solutions through premier testing, infrastructure, and accelerator programs. Together, they forge a complete innovation pipeline. For Turkish deep tech startups, these mechanisms unlock game-changing opportunities, non-dilutive early funding, strategic VC backing, international recognition, and direct access to NATO markets. We are continuously expanding our outreach to ensure our deep tech firms and VC funds fully capitalize on these resources. Esteemed participants, as Turkey prepares to host the NATO summit in Ankara this year, these initiatives take on even greater significance. The summit will present a critical opportunity to advance a shared vision for allied security, one where military readiness, technological innovation, industrial resilience, and entrepreneurial dynamism mutually reinforce each other. Hosting this historic event will allow Turkey to underscore our unwavering commitment to a stronger, more agile, and innovation-driven alliance. The Ankara summit will be more than a forum for a strategic dialogue. It will be a catalyst for concrete actions to align innovation with allied defense needs. A prime example is the NATO Innovation Scale-Up Package, which encourages non-traditional suppliers to enter the defense sector. For startups and dual-use tech companies, this creates a clear pathway to engage with defense ecosystem. For NATO, it ensures a broader innovation base, faster adaptation cycles, and a sharper technological edge. Turkey wholeheartedly supports this trajectory. With our flourishing deep tech ecosystem, expanding venture capital capacity, and formidable defense industrial base, we are fully prepared to drive this agenda forward. By leveraging our industrial strength, innovative spirit, and strategic position, Turkey is ready to take a leading role in these vital efforts. As I conclude my remarks, I want to thank Saha once again for uniting the sector's stakeholders and establishing a platform of true global significance. It's my sincere hope that Saha Expo serves as an incubator for deeper partnership, new investments, and powerful strategic collaborations. I wish you all a highly productive and rewarding event. Thank you for your participation, and I extend my highest regards to each of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Minister. And now it's time for the panel. Our topic is Powering Turkey's DSR Ecosystem as a Security Anchor in an Increasingly Volatile Region. Strategic role of the NATO Innovation Fund. First of all, I would like to invite our moderator, Mr. Ahmet Halit Hatip. He is DG for EU and Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Industry and Technology, Republic of Turkey. we have very distinguished panelists. First of all, I would like to invite Dr. Ari Kristen Johnson, President of the NIF. Now I would like to invite Mr. Patrick Schneider-Skorsky, NIF partner. I would like to invite Mr. Kadir Durak, founder of Kubitrum. And our last panelist is Mr. Erhan Kılıçözlü, Managing Partner of ACT Venture Partners. Yes, Mr. Hatip.
Thank you very much.
The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, MC, and thank you very much for this very kind introduction. And after this powerful opening speech, we are now switching to our very important panel. Actually, I'd like to officially welcome you to Saha Expo 2026, which is a leading platform, and in each year its power and impact has been increasing almost exponentially, bringing together the leading innovators, industries in the defense sector with the policymakers at international level. And this is a very important panel that we are organizing here. And actually what we are trying to understand and explore all together is that how do we translate innovation into deployable defense and security and resilience capabilities in a very rapidly changing and increasingly volatile world. And today's world, I mean, it is strategically clear that we are living in an era where the strategic advantage is no longer defined by the size of the military, nor even the sophistication of the unique systems, unique mechanisms in the innovations, in the single innovations in the defense industry is not enough to create strategic advantage. But what we are seeing is that the ability of the ecosystems to innovate, to adapt, and to deploy critical technologies at a speed and a scale is now the main concept that defines the strategic advantage. And defense, security, and resilience, what we are describing as the DSR agenda, has expanded far beyond the military assets. Today, it encompasses the several dual-use deep technologies, such as artificial intelligence, autonomous systems, cyber resilience, advanced materials, space capabilities, and next-generation energy solutions. These technologies are not anymore a complementary or a supporting mechanisms, supporting parameters for the DCA, but they are now at the very center of it. And the synchronization and interaction between all of these technologies is another important key pillar. And now what we are requesting is that bridging the gap between the innovation and the operational adoptions is now the main strategic target and the main strategic enabler for facilitation of our target. And according to this global challenge, global volatilities, and the strategic response of the alliance, the NATO, was two main initiatives. One of them is the NATO Diana, the accelerator program of the NATO, which is a challenge-driven pathway to validate the emerging technologies. And the other one is the NATO Innovation Fund, which is a multi-sovereign venture capital fund with a total budget of $1 billion and which is backed by the 24 member states. And together, NIF and Diana is creating a joint pipeline and complementing overall the NATO alliance to bridge this gap between the innovation and the adoption in the technology. And in terms of Turkey, and we are very proud to be part of these two initiatives as well, we have a very unique infrastructure and architecture at this end. Turkey's geopolitical positioning and actually being neighbor to almost every big conflicts and the crisis in the region makes it almost inevitable for Turkey to invest in its defense innovation ecosystem. And due to the security environment needs, in the last 20 years, there is a very important incentive mechanisms that targets to flourish the defense innovation ecosystem in Turkey. And we are seeing the fruitful outcomes of this within the last 20 years, in which there are now the high advanced technology, even exports is now around 8.5 billion, which was around only 1.4 billion in 2022. And when we are talking about, in which you are also witnessing here, we are talking about 4,000 companies which are also actively in the system, in the defense innovation system and suppliers, which number is almost 3,000 just last year. So we are also seeing a huge exponential increase. But one of the important pillars in our strategy for also integration and collaboration of this defense innovation system of Turkey with the international mechanisms like the NATO DSR and in the part of the alliance that we are in. And for discussing this issue, we have a very great and actually world-renowned panelists who are very important figures in their fields, and this is going to give us some very important perspective to understand this paradigm on how to achieve these goals. I would like to first introduce Dr. Ari Christian Jensen, who is the president of the NATO Innovation Fund, and I'd like to take this opportunity to express my congratulations to the doctor, who is almost nearly started his tenure in the NATO Innovation Fund, and we have full trust to him. And he drives the operational excellence in the meetings, the fund's commercial adoption and capacity building goals, and he represents the NATO Innovation Fund and supports his portfolio companies in the 24 countries backing the fund. And our second panelist is the dear friend Patrick Schneider-Skorsky, who is the partner at the NATO Innovation Fund. He leads capacity and ecosystem building at the NATO Innovation Fund, overseeing Central and Eastern Europe. He works closely with the startups, venture capitals, funds, DIANA and government and industry partners to advance deep tech entrepreneurship in regions rich in talent but underserved by venture capital. And our third panelist is Mr. Erhan Kılıçözlü, who is the managing partner at the ACT Venture Partners, as the founder of one of Turkey's first deep tech funds, and he brings over 10 years of experience in deep tech investing in emerging markets. Our last but not least panelist is Mr. Kadir Durak, founder of Cubitrum, a startup company providing products and services in the fields of quantum communications and quantum computing and quantum sensing. He was selected to join the DIANA pilot cohort in 2023 through a highly competitive process. He is also an assistant professor in electric and electronics engineering in department at the Özyeğin University. And I'd like to switch to our first round of talks with the questions, first with the Dr. Ari Christian. And dear doctor, as NIV enters its next phase, how do you envision it delivering on its promise of facilitating the deployment and adoption of technologies across allied ecosystem? Yes.
Thank you so much for the question, and thank you so much for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here, and very grateful, as all of our team members, to your very generous and warm welcome here in Turkey. So the NATO Innovation Fund was stood up about 3 years ago, and it was very much in response to some of the things that have been mentioned, the need for our defense and security and resilience not to just rely on people and standard equipment, but have the technology and the advanced technology that is needed to keep our society safe. And so as the fund was stood up, it was actually given multiple mandates. And aside from being a unique fund, being the first ever multi-sovereign venture capital fund, it is also unique in the fact that it has 3 specific missions. It has the mission of a venture capital fund, which is to provide financial returns to the investors, the 24 nations, but also to provide adoption of technology into our militaries, into our defensive forces, into our governments, and into our civil infrastructure to protect all citizens of the NATO alliance. Finally, and this is to underpin the continued development of advanced technology, it is assigned the goal of capacity building. That is to say, build up in every region the ability to find the talent, to find the ideas that lie everywhere, turn them into the capabilities that are needed, nurture them, and bring them to the forefront. We started investing a little bit over 2.5 years ago. We have a strong portfolio. It's still growing. We still have many, many years of investment left, but it's continually becoming more diverse, both in terms of geographical distribution, but also in terms of the technology that it provides to the alliance and to the 24 countries. Everything from the tiniest parts of an AI chip to the ability to actually get into space and operate there, and everything between. But as you asked about adoption, let's focus a little bit on that. Even with the relatively still small and growing portfolio we have, even though it's very strong, we're continuing to grow it, but we're already seeing those technologies, those capabilities by our companies being adopted in the real world. We have 3 of our portfolio companies already having contracts here in Europe for underwater maintenance, for land-based robotics in Ukraine, and unmanned aerial vehicles in a large contract with Germany. And this is in part built on what we have established in the fund, which is an approach to help our companies in adoption. We find the technologies, find the capabilities, we find the potential customers, we link them together, and we really help them to bring their technology to the forefront. And that really is how we apply the technologies and the capabilities we have into the next phase. And of course, on top of this, we're very focused on the capacity building because it links everything else together. A step in that direction, and we're thrilled to be launching that in part here in Turkey, is a country focused, for each country to focus on their strengths, on how their infrastructure is, what they have to offer that is best, find that, cultivate it, collaborate, and bring that to the forefront within the country and to the entire alliance.
Thank you very much, Doctor. I mean, this was very inspiring, and the function of the NATO Innovation Fund, I mean, it's not a regular venture capital fund. I mean, it's also targeting to flourish the ecosystem and make a long-term impact across the alliance. And it's, I think, main diversification of the fund with the other venture capital funds. And I would like to address my first question to the dear Patrick Schneider-Skorsky. Let me solve this technological problems. Can you hear me, dear Patrick? Thank you. Şuradan yanlaşabilirsin. Elle tutmaktan daha iyi. Okay, let's find this time better, right? Thank you. And dear Patrick was one of the first partners who has witnessed the fund's inception and development, and since the establishment of the NATO Innovation Fund, you have been among the pioneers shaping its investment activity, and you also led the capacity and ecosystem building in emerging markets. In this regard, how can emerging markets with vibrant innovation ecosystems such as Turkey capitalize on their strategic positions in a geopolitically volatile region to serve not only as a technology developers, but also as test beds and deployment hubs for NATO-relevant capabilities?
Yes, I mean, as you've quite rightly pointed out, this ecosystem and this country has many of the right ingredients to create a great dual-use, high-growth startup or defense tech startup. You know, as we've seen, if you look around today, as Professor Murray said earlier, that the industrial base that you've built in this country over the past decades is incredible, and you've overtaken many European nations in that regard, both on the defense side and on the civilian industrial base side of things. So I guess that's a great start, and you have fantastic technical universities and fantastic tech talent, both in Turkey and also in the Turkish diaspora. So I think that your question about how you can capitalize on that, I think it's twofold. So the venture capital ecosystem in this country is growing, and we've met many of your funds, and so that's also a great way to seed these companies and to get them off the ground. There's also what is incredibly interesting for companies in this space is your access to markets actually outside of Europe, and giving your startups exposure to customers in the Middle East and so on. Now, obviously, from a NIF perspective, we prioritize companies that can be adopted by NATO allies. But if I take that hat off, and just as a venture capitalist, that is also a huge opportunity for companies, and we're seeing a lot of the European defense tech companies now trying to support and to protect civilian infrastructure assets and other assets in the Middle East as a result of the unfortunate turmoil that's going on there right now. So I think that Turkey is very strategically positioned in that regard, and I think that Turkish defense tech startups have an edge over even some of the European defense tech companies that we have in our current portfolio, and also that we see in the entire ecosystem. So I think that will definitely result in several successful players, particularly in spaces like counter UAS and obviously autonomous systems and some of the technologies that we've been discussing earlier. I guess to be frank, if we're talking about some of the kind of weaknesses that we've seen in the startups that we've met so far over the past few years, is that the fact that they are very concentrated on the local ecosystem is as much a weakness as it is a strength. So we speak to companies that have really impressive growth and revenue, but they're working with maybe only one or two customers within Turkey that are driving their sales substantially, but there is a risk of concentration. So part of our goal is to help companies diversify and expand within NATO, and we can help them actually get customers in countries in Europe that are our limited partners. So it's a sort of mixed message, but it's overall I think that this ecosystem has probably more strengths than a lot of other countries we see. So I'm overall very positive.
Thank you very much, dear Patrick. I mean, this was very insightful and actionable recommendations. And I'd like to also thank you. I mean, I know we have been working very closely on the interaction between the Turkish ecosystem and the NATO Innovation Fund with you. And one of the key points, actually you also indirectly mentioned, but I think it's very important, also exemplifies the Turkey's position as well. Within the, for instance, last 5 years, in Turkish ecosystem, we are also recognizing that lots of joint ventures has been established with the Turkish ecosystems, with the NATO alliance, specifically in the European Union, in the joint projects and the joint companies. And I think, in this regard, I believe that the interaction between the companies within the ecosystem through the NATO Innovation Fund is also very valuable to let companies to complement each other within that ecosystem. And now I would like to turn to Mr. Kadir Durak, and who is an a Turkish deep tech founder who has achieved significant success in the field of quantum technologies. And he's a founder of operating in a cutting-edge deep tech domain. I would like to address him. What are the key challenges in translating advanced technologies into deployable solutions for defense and security applications?
Thank you for the introduction. Well, the biggest challenge for a startup to be in the defense ecosystem is to work with the prime contractors, because so let's say a company is trying to sell some defense products or services. It's not like the civil sectors. Unlike the private sector players, you need to work with a prime contractor. Because imagine X country's defense, armed forces or something needs a technology, and let's say your company is building it. And how do you get in contact and sell it? You cannot just make a demonstration and try to sell it. Instead, you should be working with a prime contractor and then get the legitimacy through that company. And that happens only when the certain bodies endorse you with your certain qualifications. And Diana is providing that. It provided that for us. Specifically, we have been working with the Dutch Ministry of Defense, Turkish Defense. We are also selling some products to NATO's different research organizations like CMRE, and there are also other countries that we are also having some negotiations with the prime contractors and making demonstrations so that we can get into that ecosystem. So basically, if a company wants to be in the defense ecosystem, there has to be a way to work with a prime contractor, because defense is not like the private sectors. The companies just trust on you is not enough, or the needing parties like the armed forces, let's say, they cannot just work with a startup because there's no guarantee that after 5 years the startup is going to be there. That's the biggest challenge. How do you make yourself legitimate so that you can work with this the government organizations, defense organizations? So the way is to get yourself endorsed by a prime contractor, which was very nicely trained in the Diana program. That's where we got this from. And not only that, right now, like there's a training program, quantum training program, organized by one of the ISD groups. And we are the one, actually, Cubitrium is giving that training, because in order to enrich the ecosystem, you have to contribute to, increase the educated workforce, and the way to do that is kind of doing it hands-on, and that's what Cubitrium is doing it. So eventually NATO is giving a certificate that these people are trained in this quantum summer school, and that legitimacy only comes with certain organizations' endorsement. And in that regard, NATO Innovation Fund, Diana, they are all playing a big role. That was the biggest challenge for a startup like Cubitrium to be in the ecosystem, and I think it's working well. Regarding the roles of the Diana and NATO Innovation Fund, well, let me start with the Diana. When I was first invited by the Minister of Industry of Turkey to talk about Diana, I had a statement that, the least of the support that we got was the funding. We got other supports which are way more important, introducing to certain players, certain people, providing network and access to certain platforms. That was the best thing that we got in the Diana program. And I think NATO Innovation Fund is kind of continuation of that support in different means, although for being a dual-use company requires the defense part as well. Therefore, having this network and contacts and connection is a big part of this. At the same time, startups will need, if possible, longer runway so that they can survive. And therefore, NATO Innovation Fund is kind of supporting that aspect. But if you ask me, the biggest part is the first part, the connections, legitimate. So if Diana says that part company is doing something relevant to you, and it would be good if you can have a meeting, well, that company usually takes it serious, and then they meet with you. That might be really difficult without having a personal contact. And in that regard, these efforts are quite valuable. And as Cubitrium, we have been appreciating this and enjoying this benefits of being a Diana alumni. Thank you.
I think this is one of the critical part. I mean, as you very rightly mentioned, actually there's the budgets that has been allocated for the Diana and the NIF by the member states actually high, but in terms of the sector that we are discussing, they are quite bit modest. But as you very rightly mentioned, I think the main tangible support and the asset for the startups and the companies here, that it's like giving an credit or ratification by the Diana and being invested by the NATO Innovation Fund. And I think this is a very important pillar that we have to invest in. And thank you very much for also appreciation our efforts here as the Minister of Industry and Technology for promotion of the technology, Diana and the NIF all over the Turkey. And also I'd like to now at this point turn to Mr. Erhan Kılıçözlü from ACT Venture Partners. And it's a very important venture capital. And I would like to understand from the venture capital standpoint, what actions are required to support the Turkey's deep tech startups to scale effectively and evolve into the global competitive companies with relevance to the defense sector?
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank the ministry for having me here today. I don't always get to speak in front of such a great audience and a panel. Just very briefly, at ACT, we've been backing deep tech startups since 2015, when we were first founded by the support of the European Investment Fund. And ACT stands for Accelerating the Commercialization of Technology. So we've been in this business for some time now. Our mission has been to invest in Turkish talent, and over the years our focus on deep tech just got deeper. Deep tech 10 years ago wasn't so deep. It's just getting deeper by the day. We never really talked about quantum 10 years ago, I have to say. And with shifting geopolitics, our strategy has also evolved to prioritize industry, defense, and space-related verticals, which we didn't so much in our first fund. But to address your question about what actions are required to support Turkey's deep tech startups, scale in relevance to defense, I'll be direct, it's capital. That's the fundamental requirement. Today, deep tech venture funds in Turkey can typically write pre-seed tickets around 2 million euros, give or take. And our fund, ACT, is slightly above 30 million euros at this point. And I would say most funds are relatively in modest size. And considering the scale needed for sectors like quantum communications, such as cubitrium, advanced radar, or next generation materials, these companies will need a lot more money than that. And without access to Series A, Series B funding at the required scale, what happens is our founders, they don't just fail, but they stall. They run out of money, they grow slowly, and they lose momentum. And I'm not suggesting being less selective, but I think the problem to tackle is big, and it needs to match the capital required. So I think the first action is clear, an anchor investor that must make a meaningful multi-year commitment to venture capital funds focusing in defense. And when an institution with the caliber of NIF commits to a VC, it sends a very powerful signal about the seriousness of the ecosystem, about the credibility of the fund. So that vote of confidence is enormous. I must say, when EIF invested in our first fund, they didn't invest in the second fund, but I think that credibility followed through the second fund. So everybody knew we were an EIF-backed fund. And actually, the anchor in our second fund was the second investor in our first fund. So that, really supports. But we received some excellent news yesterday. The Ministry of Industry and Technology is launching a new program, as you know, $300 million in commitments across 6 separate funding calls. Late-stage funding will receive $100 million. So that's a decent chunk, and I think it's genuinely transformative. So I thank to everybody at the ministry who worked on this, and we will absolutely be applying. The second critical issue that I thought to mention was maybe we need to talk about more of a resilience-first mandate. The ecosystem has been focused on e-commerce, gaming, that sort of topics, and I think our funds maybe are not thinking about resilience and defense so much yet. So I think it would be useful that LPs, GPs, government, we all focus on this more and convey this message to the market.
And thank you very much. And the establishment of the new fund is really yesterday it has been announced here, and it's targeting directly startups and technology empowerment in Turkey. And if I'm not wrong in the calculation, there are now about at least 10 funds that is very actively being conducting by Turkey as from the Ministry of Industry and Technology, and our strategy is also increasing this one to flourish the technological ecosystem here. And now with that response, I'm going to switch back to the second round of questions, and in which I would like to address Dr. Ari Christian that given the increasing geopolitical volatility across regions critical at NATO, how can NATO Innovation Fund strategically prioritize investments that enhance resilience and operational readiness in frontline and strategically sensitive geographies, including Turkey?
We were set up as a part of a larger effort to advance our technological capability in the NATO alliance to protect our citizens. And there is no denying the fact that we essentially have a front line, and that is very at the top of our minds. And so I have been on this job for exactly 36 days. And during that time, I have visited 3 frontline countries, Lithuania, Poland, and now Turkey. And from those visits and from discussions with others, it is so clear that technology and capabilities that we are developing are so needed to ensure the security of the societies, protect our borders, and that's what we're working towards. But we also see, and this is wonderful, it's as it says in some parts of the world, necessity is the mother of invention, that when faced with these threats, we see the innovative spirit come to the forefront in all of these countries and more countries. And we see new solutions being thought of, we see new technologies being developed, we see some things that looked like crazy ideas 3 years ago and are now actually being produced. And just as an example of this are many of the entrepreneurs we've had a chance to talk to here in Turkey. But this morning we also got a chance to visit the Baykar factory and not only see the innovation, the technical capabilities, and the amazing things that are being done in some of my favorite fields, which are aviation, autonomy, AI, and space. But also hear what brought about this desire for innovation, which is Turkey's unique position and some of the very demanding needs that have been mentioned already in terms of defending the country. And seeing how innovative ideas from a long time ago have developed into highly advanced technology, this is exactly what we're looking for. And so seeing this and what is happening elsewhere, it's very, very clear that for us to do our job in bringing capabilities to the front line and to the defense of the alliance, we need to look at each country separately. In terms of their needs, what do they really need for their specific circumstances? And what do they have to offer? And we view it then as our job to map the needs to finding the companies, the best companies, over the entire set of 24 countries we have, and find the best technologies, mature them, bring them to the forefront, and actually bring them into action. In order to do that, we don't we do not just need to work with each country specifically based on its needs and its strengths. We also need a lot of collaboration. And we have collaboration with Diana. We're working with NATO headquarters, working with each of the countries. We're working with funds. We're working with those who know the ecosystems, know where the ideas and the technologies are. And all of this is for us to bring together and find the best solutions that we can then provide in terms of capabilities. And finally, they're very much looking at collaborating with each country, getting to know their needs, getting to know their capability gaps, getting to know how we can best provide what is needed, then go out, find the technology in the countries, bring that to the forefront, mature it, and then work again with the countries to find the pathways to bring those technologies and capabilities to use.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to address the second question of the Patrick. What are the core pillars of the NIF's indirect investment strategy, and how are lessons from the battle fleet influencing your investment, capability development and deployment approach? What type of startups does the NIF prioritize for investment? What would be your key message to deep tech funders?
Yes, I mean, so I would say the key message, or what we prioritize at NIF, are startups that are developing capabilities that can actually defend and secure and make the alliance more resilient. So that's that's anything from some of the types of technologies and products we see here today at Saha. So things like as I mentioned earlier, like counter UAS, ISR capabilities, both from both ground, air, and space, and beyond. But then also longer-term technologies that can deliver a massive technological advantage, a massive kind of strategic advantage to NATO and to the allies. So more foundational technologies in computation, semiconductors, quantum technologies, even certain biotechnologies. So we sort of have to be prepared for the battle today, tomorrow, and in 10 years' time. And I think that's even the case, when we see the kind of rapid iteration and innovation coming out of countries like Ukraine, and also the types of startups in Europe that are trying to kind of imitate that rapid innovation cycle. We see the risk of kind of even taking your eye off the ball of what's maybe coming down the track in the next 18 months, in the next 2-3 years. You can't be fighting today's or yesterday's battle. So an example is in Ukraine we've seen a lot of electrically propelled FPV counter UAS interceptors, and that's been it's great. They've managed to defend themselves very effectively using those against some of the Shaheds that the Russians are using. And they're able to manufacture those at scale pretty effectively. But now we see a new class of jet-powered, jet-propelled, super-fast drones that basically you cannot intercept them by chasing them with an electrically powered drone. You have to intercept them head on, and you have to fight fire with fire effectively. You have to have a jet-powered drone. So we're already seeing this in some of the companies that we work with, also some of the companies that we see in our pipeline in Europe. You also have to be thinking a few steps ahead and a bit more long term. So to bring it back to your actual question, we're looking for capability-led startups that are thinking, that are able to deliver now, tomorrow, and in 10 years' time.
Thank you, Patrick. And I would like to address Erhan Kılıçözlü on how can collaboration between the NATO Innovation Funds and the local VCs be strengthening to the crowd in private capital and build a more robust investment pipeline in dual-use technologies?
Can you repeat that again?
No. This.
Okay.
Did you able? Let me repeat, Mr. Erhan. We can't hear you.
Yes, I will build on my previous answer when answering this question regarding collaboration between VCs and NIF. Well, if NIF becomes a meaningful actor, an anchor to venture vehicles focused on dual use and defense, it would clearly make a huge impact. It will transform fundraising calculus. A fund like ACT can approach pension funds and investors around the country. And if I tell them NATO Innovation Fund is investing, I think that will be more impressive than EBRD or EIF, because I'm sure everybody knows NATO, but not everybody may know the other institutions. So that as I said, adds credibility and opens doors. And that multiplier effect, crowding in capital is our topic. So I would imagine it would bring at least 3 times the capital that NIF invests in as an anchor. And it also has a positive impact on the portfolio companies, because a portfolio company like Cubitrium would go up around and say, well, I got funding from ACT, whose investors are so-and-so. And the credibility carries on, I think, to the portfolio companies. So definitely that sort of collaboration is great. Regarding building a robust investment pipeline, I think Diana, as Dr. Durak said, is doing an excellent job. I've heard firsthand from some founders that are technically very capable, but they've been doing consulting work rather than focusing on a particular scalable product. But thanks to Diana, they kind of got their act together and focused on a product and applied to Diana. And after Cubitrium, we've already made a proposal to a second Diana company from this latest cohort. I think we also need to, there is communication, of course, between Diana, VCs, and NIF, but it's pretty informal. Perhaps formalizing this could be useful. Perhaps Diana could announce some VCs like us as their partners, whereby we're on the follow-on schemes to take a good look at those companies to invest in. I would also like to hear, sorry.
That already exists. It's called the Diana Trusted Capital Network. So you can sign up for that. Yeah.
Thank you. As much as we try to keep our radars open to which technologies are leading the future, it would also be nice to get some feedback from the NIF to see what they're focusing on and what follow-on rounds they're interested in. In our recent meetings, we did get that type of feedback, which was useful. But to formalize it, I think could be useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Diana Trusted Capital. This is an actual and very key initiative that has been now proceeding, I think from Turkey also we have several applications and will be open to the other venture capitalists from Turkey to apply there as well. Because as I said very clearly, the amounts that we are discussing is considerable, but when we talk about the potential of the market, we need to diversify the financing sources. This is both relevant for the NIF and also as well as for the Diana. Therefore, involving the reliable venture capitals, the funds to the Diana through that mechanism is also very functional to increase the overall effectiveness of the program as well. And I want to return back to Mr. Durak. How do you see the role of programs like the NIF and Diana in supporting startups through the critical transition from early stage innovation to scalable market-ready capabilities? What kind of support beyond funding do founders need most to successfully engage with defense ecosystem and NATO-related opportunities? Yeah. You have a real-life experience, by the way.
Yes. Actually, that the company that you define is pretty much one of the companies that fits into that class is Cubitrium. That's why I will just go through my our experience as Cubitrium. So like Diana was kind of, kind of a little bit of cash support, but mostly teaching how to do dual use business. And dual use is the key here. It's not only defense, because you cannot survive as only a defense company, as a startup. Because some defense procurements may take 2 to 3 years. Because the technology readiness level of the defense products are supposed to be high. And that requires some engineering standards. And a technology like quantum technologies, there are no proper engineering standards. There are few of them, very description level, not that much useful. So if you want to use a product in a defense system, the TRL is going to be low because there are no actual useful standards, which are getting built and then forming up. But right now they are very at a preliminary stage. So how do you continue? Then basically you work with the researchers of the organizations and the companies and the private sectors. And to do that, you need to engage with the researchers, but at the same time, the decision makers are not the ones that you talk the technical stuff with you. Then the question becomes, how do you get the decision to work with you from that large corporate company or the government organization? So then you need some, elevating mechanisms, and Diana is quite successful on that regard. But apart from that, you also need some network, some people. You need to access some people to get the the term seal the deal. It's not only about making an introduction. You want to sell something, there should be some contract. To go to that level, you need some endorsement from esteemed organization, which is NATO in this regard. So it was a good statement that there may be some organizations that people don't know, but everyone knows NATO. So it's a good endorsement. So that works very well. But apart from that, there are some other distinctions, like there are different organizations and unions, and that those considerations might be considered in the Diana program, and maybe NAF's considerations as well, because for quantum technologies, that is becoming a highly strategic technology that therefore is considered almost like nuclear. So therefore the export control will start, and sometimes you already have some sort of barriers. So it would be really nice if Diana can foresee these things, maybe get some feedback from the Diana companies or someone from the one of the players as well. But it would be good to consider those barriers as well. There are barriers apart from NATO. I'm talking about NATO ally countries that we're all working together. There's a good ecosystem built by NATO, but at the same time there are other partitions within the NATO countries, and it might be good to foresee the problems may arise due to these partitions. So that could be helpful for the continuation of this support to kind of elevate and rise this whole ecosystem, deep tech ecosystem, which is initiated by Diana, which is a perfect program. These are my main points. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it was a very fruitful panel in which we discussed the defense security resilience issues, and I think one of the key insights that is achieved here is that the DSR is not can be handled by one only institution or a company, but it's definitely an ecosystem development. And when we think about Turkey and the alliance, NATO alliance, we are also figuring out that organizations that the strategic approach like the NATO Innovation Fund and the Diana is a key pillars that also make this ecosystem much more fruitful, and the collaboration between the member states and the organizations of these member states and between the alliance is one of the critical pathway that we need to establish for the collaboration. And before going to the question and answer session, I would like to give to the panelists to their maybe one sentence advice for the entrepreneurs working in the deep tech and dual use domains. Yes, Mr. President.
So the first advice to any entrepreneur everywhere is don't give up. There are so many obstacles you will run into. There will be so many reasons of why you should give up. So the first advice is always don't give up. You said one sentence, right?
Yes, Mr. Skorsky.
Yeah, I would say know your customer, be demand driven.
I mean, I have to say this, unfortunately, for the companies in the defense sector, the demand will be always there. I mean, the current crisis in the world is saying that, again, unfortunately, in the defense sector, I object maybe the demand is not the main.
See, these mics don't work. What I mean is don't kind of adopt a build it and they will come approach, because we see a lot of founders trying to do that.
Creating a relevance in the supply.
Yeah.
Yeah, get it. Thank you very much, dear Peter. And Mr. Kılıçoğlu.
I would say don't try to do it on your own. Get some advice, get involved, speak to VC funds, get involved with an accelerator program, and don't go too far without making sure what you're doing is right. So earlier the better. We're happy to talk to everyone.
Thank you very much. And what about Mr. Durak?
For academic papers, there's a search tool, Scholar. So if you go there, you will see one motto saying that stand on the shoulders of the giants, which is a good way of saying this. So NATO or Diana, like whatever you can get, like, you know, if you can build your technology and your relationships on top of that, do that. Do not try to do everything by yourself.
Thank you very much. And if you have questions from the house, we'll be very happy to address, I think, the panelists if they have time as well. Yes, please, yeah.
Hello, I am Dr. Uğur Tarçın, as a former ACT resource chief as well. So my question is, as far as I know, that there is no Turkish company has been advertised for NIF yet. What is the reason behind that? The Turkish company is not eligible for meeting the criteria, or there are other options are more important than this. So because I participated as my former head to resource committee and the budget committee as well. At the end, the nation asking why any of our company is not meeting the criteria, something like that. So I know that, sir, you are new in your post, and congratulations for your tenure. But I think so. There are many Turkish companies who could beat this criteria in these days. Also, I'm a professor at the government university as well, the Saha Istanbul as well. Thank you very much.
Answer?
Yes, please.
All right, I can start, and I'll hand it over to Patrick as needed. So first of all, just to make it absolutely clear, there is no doubt in my mind that there are Turkish companies that fit exactly the bill, the capabilities and things that we need. We're just looking for the right matches, and we will continue to do so. And one of the key things we're doing in collaboration with our good colleagues here, and would like to do it with the wider ecosystem, is to find the best ways in which we can find those companies.
I don't have much to add to that, but we're constantly looking for companies in Turkey, and this is probably our fifth. I think this is my third time here, and then a couple of my investment colleagues also have visited both Istanbul and Ankara separately on a couple of occasions. So it's we are meeting a lot of local startups, and you have to also bear in mind that we're a very long-term fund. We are, we're only 2 years into investing so far, and we still have many years to go. So again, there's no doubt in my mind that we will have, if not 1, 2, 3 Turkish startups at some point. But you have to give us time. And if you have recommendations as well, please, I'll be available afterwards, and I'd love to add to my Turkish deal flow.
Yeah, well, basically, tomorrow I'm making a presentation. I think you stole my pitch. So thank you very much.
And we have another. Do we have another question? I think you were. No.
It's one at the back.
Yes, at the very back and side. Yeah.
Hi, John Rathbone, Financial Times. A very subjective question, but how do you find that the Turkish ecosystem differs, say, from other defense and tech ecosystems in the density or the complexity, or does it specialize in certain areas that you're looking for certain things that can't be provided here or can be provided here compared to other places? Thanks.
Yes, well, I guess it depends what you mean by the Turkish ecosystem, because if you're talking about the Turkish venture capital ecosystem, there are some great startups, and we've seen really successful, internationally successful and internationally scaled Turkish startups in areas like e-commerce and gaming and other software technologies. So I think it's fair to say that the VC ecosystem in Turkey is quite healthy. When it comes to some of the types of technologies that NIF is interested in, I think, as I mentioned earlier, we've seen some really interesting companies, but there's maybe too much. There's a lot of concentration on the local market, and I think that there are a lot of ecosystems in Europe, or there are a few ecosystems in Europe at least, that suffer from having a big enough local market to kind of expand and grow a business that scales locally, and then there isn't necessarily the pressure to scale internationally. So that's one thing. But I would say, rather than pointing out the differences, I think it's important to focus on the strengths, which I mentioned earlier, which are fantastic technical education, technical universities, great research centres, very strong manufacturing base, and some great VCs as well. So I think the ingredients are there for successful dual use startups. It's just it's a question of time. Maybe I would say the one specific thing which we also covered a little bit earlier on some of the defense tech startups is the way that they're structured. They're often sometimes they're joint ventures, sometimes they are sort of majority owned by another company that can be actually their biggest customer, which is actually can be very good and healthy from a business perspective, but for venture capital investors, sometimes the way the cap table looks is not structured, not conducive to the type of to the type of scale that we expect. But again, I think that's very, very specific to certain defense companies, and it's definitely not the case with other more civilian type technologies.
And actually, I would like to also respond to that question. I think it's a very valid and very relevant question. And from the Minister of Industry perspective, in terms of the sectors, I would like to explain one issue. For instance, what we are trying to achieve most in the Diana, it's also quite target, is that in Diana and the NATO Innovation Fund is that adoption of the innovation into the system. And from the Turkey's experience, due to the being close to the conflicted zones and having in operations in several times within the last 30 years, I'm referring to the military operations, this was brought another key insight, which is adoption of the innovations to the system, which is much more easier in Turkey in defense industry than some of the NATO countries, because there's an interconnection between the innovators, like the primes here, and the demand side. So linking them was a must for Turkey during that conflicted times. So actually this brought us a very fruitful ecosystem in the defense industry innovation within the Turkish system. And actually we are also considering that capacity that we develop on the adoption of the innovation to the directly to the military and the defense industry could be an opportunity that we can collaborate with the other NATO allies, that we can share with the NATO allies, that we can collaborate with the NATO allies. Thank you very much. If you have any question, I will be very happy to do. Or I see that there is no other rising hands. So I think we are very at the end of the panel. I would like to express my sincere thanks and appreciation for your very insightful inputs, and which make this very enriched. And thank you very much, all of you, for joining this important panel with us. And we have some, I think, souvenirs for our esteemed panelists.
Yes. Evet, önce onlardan. Sayın Genel Müdürümüze. Bunlar Genel Müdürümüzün hediyeleri. Genel Müdürüm, bunlar sizin hediyeleriniz panelistlerimize. Aman dikkat et, kırılmasın. Dikkat et. Dikkat et, dikkat et, dikkat et. Tamam tatlım, sen götür. Yes, we thank you, our distinguished guests, our moderator, our panelists, for their valuable contributions. To mark this day, special day, also we have small tokens of appreciation for them. I would like to first invite retired Rear Admiral, PhD, Mr. Ayhan Türker Koçpınar, to give the gifts. May I have a few more minutes, please, to have a family photo? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we need a family photo, please.
Suat, ben bir detay alayım, fotoğrafıyız. Geçiyorum.
Professor is here. Professor, we invite you to the stage also? Thank you. You are so kind. Yes, now it's a really big family photo. Thank you so much. Also, dear guests, thank you so much for your valuable contributions. We would like to see again the other panels. Thank you so much. Genel Müdür